So here I am working with Zaina in a very small space. So we're going to do a little bit of healing, because if the dog can heal well in this teeny tiny space, then it really and truly understands heel position and where they're supposed to be. So
get close.
So I tell her to wait, and then I tell her to get close, so she drives into position, so we have a little bit of energy, and then her job is to stay in line with my left leg. When she does, I mark and feed. Lower the volume a little bit, and she drops the food. And then I tell her to wait, and then I have her catch up, and then we heal. So we're doing turns. Good girl. I like to do a backwards release because my dogs tend to want to forge. So doing that backwards release helps counter that. And I like the way I do the release because then they end up turning and looking at my face. So then you'll see it's a continuous, never-ending loop. I feed. They go right back into position. I give her a second or two because once a dog eats, right, think about it. They're thinking, ooh, yummy food. They're not thinking, oh, I really need to concentrate. So you need to give them a second or two to get, or three, to get their head on straight.
Close.
And I determine that by looking at her. So there we're going a nice tight inside spin just to mix it up a little bit, and she stays in position the entire time, and I feed her in position there. So I mix up. Sometimes I feed her in position. If a dog has trouble with position, then I'd be feeding in line with the seam of my pants with my left hand touching my leg every single time. She knows position really well, so I can vary where I reinforce her. So here what I'm working on is what I've taught my dogs as a trick, which is if I stand there and do nothing and we're just sitting there, which typically is super rough on the dogs. There's no motion. They don't know what to do. They're feeling pressure. There's distractions. There's all this stuff happening. They get super flat. So to counter that, I taught my dogs that when we're just sitting here and nothing happens, look at me, keep staring at me. That's the trick. So in their minds, sitting there and doing nothing is actually fun because it's a silly pet trick to them, no different than wave or spin. She's offering those bounces. I'm not asking her for them. And then I mark and reward. And I always reward by moving quickly so that it's like a dynamic reward. And so it's quick release with motion because that's more exciting for them. All right, I have to give her toy because I feel like all my dogs have all these issues because she had a little stomach thing a few days ago and I'm still nervous about giving her. So there she was acting weird for some reason. So I left this in because it was very unusual. So typically when my dogs tug, I push on them and they love that. So if you notice here, it's very subtle. I go to push on her a couple times and she's acting a little odd about it. I don't know why. See there, she didn't like that. And I'm like, oh, that's weird because we do that all the time. So I'm like, that's kind of odd. So then I touch, she was better that time. There, see, she ducked her head. So I'm like, that is super weird. I have no idea where that came from. So what I am going to do in the moment, right, rather than just leave it and be like, I don't know what happened, is I'm going to just address it. And then afterwards, I'm going to think about what the heck is going on here. All right. So I'm like, all right, let me just pet her. Good girl. It's all right. Don't worry. Let me just rub her. Yeah. See, she's acting a little weird. So in my head now, I'm starting to think, I wonder if she's a little sore somewhere. I'm going to have to check her out. Or she was at the vet the other day. Did something happen that made her nervous or startled her? So then I'm going to put the toy, go back. Whoopsie. Get her tugging good. See, she's still ducking her head a little bit. Now I'm going to touch her just a little bit. Oh, there. Now she's getting better about it again. So then I said to myself, all right, rather than continue, first thing I need to do is check her out physically, and I'm going to address this separately. So I just said that, left that in and pointed that out because it's tempting to say, okay, I'm filming, these are the things that are, or I'm training, these are the things I'm going to do, and just blow through them. But whenever something happens, no matter what my plan is, I need to address it. I stop what I'm doing. It's no longer about that, and I'm going to address the problem. Okay? So I made a mental note now. I know there's something I need to look at, and now I'm going to continue on. And I'm going to keep a real sharp eye out, but nothing else bothered her at all that we did in this session, just that. Good girl. So I stopped there. I did a halt, which she did perfectly, but I expect my dogs to do a little hop when I halt, so I waited for the hop before I continued on. See there, that's the hop. That's what I expect when I halt. Good girl, yes. I think I gave her a tiny piece of apple or something. Silly apples. Okay. Good girl. Good girl. So there, I'm turning slowly to the right. I'm drifting to the right. I like to drift a lot. That pulls them in. Plus they think, again, that's a game. So there, the dog has to stay in line with my left leg. When my right leg goes forward, that's where dogs tend to forge. They tend to move forward on the right leg, but I don't want that. My dogs have been taught as a game, I call it the position game, that when this right leg is forward, it doesn't matter. Ignore it. You stay on my left leg. That's the only leg you need to care about. So you see there, my leg was forward. She stayed with my left leg. Good girl. So now she's going to do a couple tricks. She's waving. I'm like, good girl, nice job. And she's like, okay, now what? She likes to be told what to do. All right, so now, see, she's acting a little weird with her head again. So when I ended up checking her out, there was nothing wrong with her neck or her shoulders. So I'm just going to counter condition that. I have a suspicion. I know where that might have happened, but so that was my pre-cue for command discrimination. And then I just reward the stand, because what happens with command discrimination, we're always going to the middle, or we're always doing the whole thing. And what happens? The beginning pieces and the middle pieces get really weak. All right. So there I reinforced her stand, her first position. So I'm using apples here. Again, not the best option. So there, yes, so I'm going to feed her first position a few times, throw in a little trick. So now I'm doing the down a few times. So now you can see she's like, oh, this piece is fun again, right? Because very rarely do we reward those pieces. She's getting a little far from me. The floor is really slippery, so she's sliding. I realized that part of the reason she's like not as close to me as usual is because of the footing. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm like, come up. I'm like, oh, you're sliding. Never mind. Sorry. So there I took one step and then rewarded her. So I'm just mixing it up. Okay. Hopefully next time I record, my dogs will be eating normal treats. So I tell her what we're doing. Now I said yes after I walked away. And you could see she wasn't expecting that, because she's like, I don't usually get a cookie there. Well, she does, but she hasn't lately. So that's why I'm doing this now. She's like moving over because she's sliding. So there, So the important thing here is walk away just like you would in the ring. Say yes first, then move your hand. And she always gets reinforced to my hand because I taught her, because this way she stays straight when she comes to me. So now the important piece is if you turn around and your dog is fully engaged and they've been trained, they will do the position. If you turn around and your dog is not fully engaged, if their attention is split, dicey whether or not they'll do it. So I work on this piece a lot where I turn and I want my dog to offer engagement. So there, see, I just stood there. I stood up tall. I made faces at her. She started to offer a little bit of a motion with her foot, but the main thing is that really rapt engagement. And then I say yes, and she gets a cookie for that. Good girl. So now I think we might do it again. Good girl. Get close. Nice. Get in. She's sliding. First position. And then I reward that again just to mix it up. So she never knows when she's going to get the cookie, right? Because the temptation here would be to just go back out there and do that piece again that I just did. But no, I'm going to mix up, always mix up when she gets reinforced. Yes. All right. So people say, does she do that in the ring? No, she never has. If she did, I'd be ecstatic. It would mean she was so comfortable and so relaxed and so engaged that she felt she could offer that. Plus, there's not that much time passes, right? So, for example, when I typically turn, now the judge would tell me to give the signal. I'd give the signal. So see, I'd be giving the signal before she even thought to move. But so it's never, everybody panics. It's never been a problem. But what happens is if I do this a fair amount, I turn around, I look at them, and they're really engaged, and then I give them the signal, and boom, they're ready to go. And it just keeps this exercise fun. This exercise is so boring for them, and they're just stuck there in one place with all this stuff going on around them and all this pressure. It's just a ridiculously hard exercise for the dogs. So anything you can do to keep it fun is hugely important. All right, good girl, Zaina.